Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. How you all doing? I have, of course, for you another amazing guest today. One that I have been trying to get on for a second time for how long
Maybe
has it
2
been?
years?
Yeah, well, 2, 3 at this point. I don't. What did we actually do the first time? Like, was it like kind of synchronicity kind of stuff, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
and Faye was on for that one too.
right. Yeah. So, yeah, Mr. Brady from Apocalypsis Historia. Do check out his channel. It's really, really cool. It does some amazing stuff. Really got started with the whole Shakespeare conspiracy. Is it a conspiracy?
I think I think me and my team would definitely say there's something conspiratorial about it, right? There's someone hiding something, and I guess that's if I could use the broadest term. I would say there's a conspiracy. So
There's someone hiding something. Well, ain't that the story of this age, really? Um, but yeah, before we go any further, if you do like this, if you do like the Graham Pagans podcast, if you do like the guests that I bring, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on all the social medias, mostly X and Instagram. Just look up Greyhorn Pagans or Greyhorn Podcast. If you feel like supporting us a little more, we have channel memberships active. You can get a bunch of bonuses, bonus materials. I will be doing more with that in this new year, new Gregorian year, that is of 2026. If you don't like to funnel your money through YouTube, which I do understand, there's always the Patreon, patreon.com/pagans, where I have a few different tiers, one of which being the Greyhorn Pagans book club, of course, where we are currently still reading Night Side of the Runes. So please do make sure to check that out at patreon.com/Greyhorn Pagans. And yeah, without further ado, Brady, bro, what do you have for us today?
all right, yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me back on. And when we first talked about synchronicity that many years ago, so many years ago, one of the big aspects that not to just connect synchronicity to, that term goes back to Carl Jung, right? That's the guy who coins it. And what's he also writing about? He's writing about Wotan. He's writing about Odin, our boy, our man, our all father. So yeah, it's just an entity deity that I've been hyper fascinated or Wotanaz about. I've been a little obsessive with Odin. So ever since, connecting it back to the Spear Shake name or the Spear Shaker name, perhaps. So, Shakespeare stuff aside, don't get me started because I'll go down that rabbit hole easily. But, you're kind of getting a little sneak peek because I'm trying to finish. I'm like deep in edits of the third part in my Etymology of God series is kind of what I'm calling it essentially. And it's already been written up on Substack, so you can technically go read that if you want. But yeah, this is the first time I'm like putting it on air and kind of trying to have like a cohesive, quick pitch about it. And I'm gonna have all the third part of the video is gonna be the longest one with all the fancy edits. I'm trying to look like Fortress of Loo, trying to look like all the
Oh
the
man, setting a
Gnostic Conformity,
standard
trying to
for
look like all
yourself
those kind
there.
of guys, right? So, but
Really
yeah, so
setting a standard for yourself there, raising the bar high. Fortress of Loot, dude. I mean, it's a great channel, so
yeah, exactly right. Cambrian Chronicles, that's another one we really like out there. He's great. Yeah, it does a lot of like Welsh English sort of weird
yeah.
Wikipedia rabbit holes. So, but yeah, so I already have the first two entries done. I'm going to be referencing them, and I have this little presentation I'll show you here. I already have the first two entries done, and the third one's just like the longest one essentially. And so it kind of started off, reading some heathen history. Reading this book here by Stephen Paulington is the first one that I kind of saw this. I would like to get his interview too. Actually, he just released a book like 2 years ago now called Woden. So it's all about the English, tracing anything about Odin or Woden in the English Anglo-Saxon context. But anyway, so here I'll pull up. So now I'll start to share my screen if that's cool. And I got this presentation going on for here. So let me see how this goes. Zoom over here. Earlier it was minimizing it for me. Now it's not doing it. All right, let me go share.
All right.
Here we go. Okay, so y'all can see this? Can you see it?
It yeah, there we go. That's now it's actually visible for everyone. Yes. All right. Oh yeah. Oh
There we go. All right, so yeah,
yeah. Nice.
here's like my presentation for sneak peek for Stein alone, my man. So we're talking about the Goths today, and we're talking about the god of the Goths. And so I'll tell you how this whole thing kind of started. Because yeah, I was just reading this book, the one I just showed you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the book, it was talking about the Lombards. Okay, so it's talking about um the Lombard history, and at one point it was kind of going through some of their culture stuff, and it happened to say that you know the name for Odin, because the Lombardics were kind of this Germanic tribes of sorts, and so they, where the country's name today, Lombardy and that part of Italy, that northern part of Italy is like, still bears their name today, right? Um, the Lombards had a name for Odin, and they called him Godin. Okay, and of course, I'm an English speaking person, and I see Godin, and I'm like, hey, wait a second, first three letters, doot doot doot, it's got the word God in there, so I was like, hey, did our word for an English God come from this name from Odin? All right. Have you heard about this name at all for the Lombardic name of Odin before?
Yeah, in preparation of this show, I did try and educate myself at least a little bit on the Goths. So I did catch that name, and it was indeed God that I first thought of. I hadn't made the Wotan connection just yet, although it being a Germanic pagan tribe. Um, it makes sense, and I do believe I have heard the like Vodon Godon God connection before, but
Mm-hmm.
fleeting. Hasn't really stuck. Haven't really gone deeper into it. So very curious as to what you have found.
Yeah. So yeah, you're referencing to some of the stuff that I kind of pondered too, right? And that's what got me started is seeing this spelling here and going like, hey, does this maybe get truncated into God? So looking around, I do find this old source right here that I kind of quote in the first part of the video. So they, being the Lombards, this is a quote from some book from like the 1800s or whatever. They also worshipped Woden or Godin, whom after the fourth day of the week was called Wednesday. It is said that this word Godon, becoming afterwards contracted into God, the Germans and English gave the name to the deity. All right, so here's someone kind of confirming, like, yep, Godin or God is literally just a chopped down form of an Odinic name, right? So that's what got me excited. Like, yo, every time we say God, are you really just saying like Odin every single time? That's kind of tantalizing, or provocative, especially if you're in this pagan heathen, scene, right? Where it just happens to ironically be that the highest term in English potentially, God itself, right? There's nothing that goes higher than gods and goddesses. Is that just a truncated name for Odin? Like that'd be pretty scandalous, I would say, right? And here's another video by Seven Bomar, and he says the same thing. He's like, yeah, like Godon, Woden, it just he does this whole G swapping of W thing or whatever, which I'm about to go into a little further here. And our boy Zarelith, he actually commented on my first video of this, and he was kind of backing up Seven. He's like, well, if you take this methodology, maybe Seven's still right or something along those lines. But when I, not to say if it's right or wrong, but I did ask other academics and I did find other people because, for instance, Dr. Scott Shell, who I'll actually reference something else he did with Survive the Jive, who I know you did a interview with. But anyway, I emailed Dr. Scott Shell and I was, kind of asking the other experts like, hey, is there anything to this truncating of Godon into God? Does that make sense and on? He was kind of like, nah, that's doesn't really seem to hold water, this sort of vowel shift here and blah, 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 and so he was like, no, that doesn't really check out, so I was, kind of a little deflated, I saw a lot more modern sources being like, no, this is, this is incorrect that, Godon does not contract into God, right? So I was like, oh, kind of bummed. And just to show some more of these letter shifts in the throughout these Germanic languages for a second, okay? So yeah, in Proto-Germanic, Odin's name is Wotanaz, the Lord of the Frenzy. In Old English, he
Yeah.
goes by Woden or Wodan. In Old Norse, we know that W gets dropped, and so it's just Odin, right? And the Lombards obviously have that G instead of a W, so Godon instead of Wodan or Wodanaz. And this WG swapping is very, very common between English and Lombardic, okay? So yeah, within Lombard, that's why the word ward in Germanic, to guard or shield something is pretty much the same word as guard in Lombarded, right? Because that GU is just a swap for the W. And look at all the names that do the same thing. Germanic Wilhelm turns into Lombardic Guilliamus. Germanic William into Lombardic William, and even obviously Wotan into
Oh.
Godon, right? So
Oh
just kind
shit,
of showing that.
I never even thought of that. I never even made that connection. Which also, especially the like Gilliam, whatever. That's also like very much sounds, or the spelling very much looks like the French Guillaume, for example.
Yes, yes,
The French Celts, because Celts weren't just the British Isles. Of course, the was it the Gauls, the Celts. Well, the Gauls were basically like the French Celts, if you will.
yeah.
So yeah. Oh, that didn't even. I never even registered that.
So yeah, this is just this phenomenon they were explaining between the W's and G's and why it's not linguistically or whatever per certain academics why that doesn't hold water, at least for Godon being contracted into God. Okay, so they're like, no, no, this is not the same. But do you know? If we're talking about the Lombards real quick. We're already kind of questioning about Odin in any way, but do you know the history or the how the Lombards got their name?
I don't believe I do. I know it is indeed a region in northern Italy. In Dutch, we call it Lombardije. We
Do
know
you know what
that.
that literally translates to?
No, can't say I
Apparently,
do.
it translates into Longobeard or literally Longbeards.
Lombard, Longbeard. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So that's what they'll say, right? Lombards were called the Longobards or Longobeards, and so literally Longbeards. Okay, so they apparently, per their own like little mythology, that name is bestowed by Odin himself. So in the history, the Lombards, they were previously called the they have all these sort of Black Sea steppe peoples that are dealing with Rome. You got the Vandals and the Winili and all these, Longobards and Gutones. We're gonna get to all those in a second. So you got all these like different tribes or whatever. This tribe, they were called a different one. Maybe they're called the Winili, and they went up against the Vandals. I kind of forget the exact order, but per their little mythology, they needed to have a big battle, and Odin and I think it was Frigg, his wife, they pretty much agree. These pre-Lombards, before they're called that Woodnilly, I forget their name. They're gonna go fight, the Vandals or someone else, and Odin is gonna say, "All right, when we wake up tomorrow morning, whoever I see first, I'm gonna tell is the winner." And the Lombards kind of have like a deal with Frigg to try to help them out, and so she tells them, people, go tell all your women to go tie their hair underneath their chins so they look like men, and then I want y'all to array and look like a bigger, far superior force, right? To kind of, psychologically show, your vast numbers or whatever. So yeah, all the women tie their hair underneath their beards, underneath their chins, look like beards, so they look like men. And then when Odin or Godon, I guess in this case, wakes up in the morning, he like looks out the window and sees like this huge array of an army, and he's like, "Hey, who are these long bearded people?" And Frigg's like, "Aha! Like that's the first one you said. Therefore, you have to make them the winners." And so that's how the Lombards win that battle or whatever. But then from then on, they changed their name to Longobeards
Hmm.
from this particular little story, right? So yeah, Odin still gave them their name. So yeah, even if Godon doesn't contract into God, apparently, turned out the name Lombard itself is still connected with Odin anyway.
That's fascinating, and also it's so nice that that Frigg had a big role to play in this. To always trust the mother goddess. The role of the goddesses is very much downplayed. I feel it's always about the warrior gods and the Aesir, and I'm
Right.
like, yeah, maybe Freya, but
In
um,
my
that's
in
clever.
my video on the word weird, which I sort of make the claim that the word becomes what it is today to be, unconventional or off-putting is because of Shakespeare, right? Because he names his witches, they call them the Weird Sisters, okay? But
Hmm.
weird is cognate. The old English word weird means like fate and destiny and the past and all this stuff, but it's
Yeah.
cognate with the one of the Norns, the big Norn, right? Erd. That's why the Norn's well in Voluspa, it's called Erd's well. It's not even just the Norn's well, it's specifically Erd, which means the past, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, I make this claim in this video that there's like maybe some perjuration going on with certain feminine words kind of get like a hit in connotation where masculine ones kind of get like an uplifting. So I make the case, a male dog is called a stud, and that's a compliment if you're called a stud to another guy, right? Like, oh, you're like tough and blah 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 blah. But a female dog is called a bitch, and you suck if you're a bitch, right? And so therefore, like the female words always kind of get like a little negative hit essentially when they're being applied. And so I make this case, yeah, this word weird, which was like this really powerful word in Old English, right? It's a feminine word, but over time, it kind of got memed into something depowered. It doesn't mean fate and destiny anymore. It just means strange, So,
I really got to catch up on your videos, man. Damn.
yeah, that was one of my favorite videos I did last year. That one did really well. And I thought, yeah, please go, everyone go check out my Gothic horror one and these ones too, because yeah, I did this whole thing about Shakespeare and the word weird and all this Norse history stuff or whatever. That one did really well, but then my other recent ones on this stuff, like for instance, this Longabeard stuff I'm going into, this is all in a video, and like it got like 100 views, so. um, but anyway, I'll go into the next bit, okay? So yeah, this is where I sort of ended up, all right? So, okay, Godon apparently does not track into God. All right, well, that's kind of stinky, but it's kind of cool. The Longbard or Longabeard, that Lombardy has Odinic properties in it, right? So that's kind of neat. So that's where so here's my second video. This video is already out too. So that, all right, so if God does not come from Godon, where does it come from? I was like, what does the word God mean? I'm really big into etymology. That's why I figured out the word weird meant fate and destiny and all that stuff and how it got changed in its meaning and blah, 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 blah. So I was like, all right, let's do the same thing. Let's just figure out where the word God comes from. So you can already see like where I'm going with this, where I have double exposure of, Christian God here, but I already got Odin in this thumbnail too. So you know where I'm going with this stuff, but, so this video and this essay that I did is all about, yeah, just tracing the etymology of God. Like, yeah, what is its etymos? Literally Greek, like meaning and like being is what it means.
Yeah.
And this is stuff that Plato talks about. Is like, if you want to know a word, just like, or any concept, just study the word and it'll kind of reveal more of its being. So
Yeah.
the origins of the word God apparently comes from Proto-Germanic. So God is a Germanic word. That'll be significant in a minute about why this is going to go where it's going to go. But the word God apparently comes from Proto-Germanic Guthon. Sometimes you'll see it with a D. The THD letters are kind of very interchangeable.
Yeah.
In some cases, but which is possibly from Proto-Indo-European. I may abbreviate this to Pi for the rest of this. So if you see Pi, I mean Proto-Indo-European.
Sure.
So the Proto-Indo-European root could potentially goot, that which is invoked, or number two, goo, just this front part really, and then this two is just added on. So goo, as in something that is being poured or potentially libated or something to do with like pouring or flowing or gushing liquid, perhaps, is what most people associate with this goo etymos means. Okay. And for instance, yeah, so I'm going to referring a lot to this goo to pour one because this is the one that most people think. But in this video, I go through like so many different etymologies I pull up so many different sources showing every single possible, thing about what this word God can mean. Is it,
I mean, what
something
I'm,
which you invoke through sound and shouting, or is it something
yeah.
that you summon through pouring and libation or sacrifice or something?
I mean, this also very much just reminds me of the very basic German gut,
Yes.
GUT,
Yep.
which
Yep.
in so many Germanic languages, English being a somewhat Germanic language, it's good. It's goed here in the Netherlands. It's good, which all means the same thing. That's, well, I mean, like literally, it is good, and to be good is to be kind of close to divinity, if you will. So God is good, literally.
Some people will say that those connections between those two words are not sound. So yeah, some people say like, oh no, God and good are not coming from the same place or whatever. And it's just like, I don't know how how not? But I do have. I go into my essay, which is I don't think I have it on here, but I do have in the essay where I think it's some Swedish stuff. Yeah, that there's like this idea of good. They have a word for good, but it's got to do with like fertile crops and this sort of thing. Like, yes, it's like, things are good and God is good and this, yeah, when things are actually kind of rolling or whatever. But I don't get ahead of myself. In the Netherlands, y'all speak Dutch.
Yes.
What's the word for to pour?
Um, Schenken.
Oh, is there? So I heard, yeah, the Slinkton one. Is there one that starts with a G or to gush? Maybe
Um,
what would you say? How to like to gush?
to gush. Um, yeah.
What about? Is it the word
Golven.
geiben or gieben?
Geven. That is to give.
What about it's like Gieben? Like I thought it's Gabe. Obviously, I don't
Um,
pronounce Dutch at all. So
yeah, I mean, geven is to give. You have golven, which is wave, like waves, from the like from the ocean, for example. So yeah, schenken, which is to literally to pour. That's really what I can. Given.
Gieben.
That's
Oh, it means like to gift, maybe. But yeah,
that's
there's like some other
German,
one.
I
Oh,
believe.
maybe yeah, German
Geben.
and Dutch. Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
mean
maybe I'm getting ahead of
they
myself
are
because I'll.
both Germanic languages, of course, but Dutch is not Deutsch. That's different.
So yeah, my American ignorance coming in here. All right, well, yeah, I heard the other one. Maybe there'll be some other cognate ones, and I'm just pronouncing it wrong. But all right, so anyway, but the word God coming from potentially these ideas of either God. If we broke it down etymology, it means that it's something that which you're invoking, perhaps through sound or shouting or chanting or praying, or it's got like a vocal component or some sort, or something that you like poured a libation to that you kind of summon through this, sacred practice or something right outside of the profane. So yeah, I'm gonna, like I said, referring to a lot. This Proto-European root "gu" is gonna come up a lot, and why that's really relevant later on. So I already said, yeah, God could be the invoked one or the libated one. That's what most of these people will say. Okay. Um, and here's just more of these breakdowns of what how this word works, right? It's this D ending just means it's past participle, which means that it's the when it's something's being done or finished with a verb, right? So hanged or stunned or et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's just once again I'm just showing you the breakdown of like where this word's coming from.
Sure.
um
Yeah.
how would you pronounce this letter right here, this D looking letter
Um,
for my American ignorant
I
people,
I believe it is supposed to be a th sound
right?
because
Kind of
you'll
weird mix
see
between
the
like a TH and a D.
yeah, so, yeah, something like that. Like in the English countries, you know him as Thor. In the Germanic countries, we know him as Donar,
Yes.
or Thunor in the the Anglo-Saxon, I believe. So yeah, it is DTH. It's kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, and why I'm asking is that some of the phonetic ironies will pop up later when we're kind of pronouncing it, right? Because if I was a ignorant American, perhaps I could pronounce this like guth or gut or goot, right? But just kind of remember that for later on because I'll kind of point out the weirdness that's going through my mind. But um, and so when we're looking at other old Germanic words for God, right, there's a couple other ones. This is not actually the most popular one, especially one that we know, Proto-Germanic onsus, right?
Ansus,
Cognate with Old Norse os, plural, osir, right?
yeah, Ansus
Obviously the
is
triads
it's
of the
one
gods. And
Ansus is one of the runes
correct, yeah. So that rune is definitely
associated with Odin, I believe,
yep,
if I'm not
exactly.
mistaken.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of,
he is the tribe of the os, os tree, or the os. Yeah, this concept is all swirling together. That's why osir. This letter here, the aska, in Old English is cognate with the Ansu's rune, which is the one I got tattooed to my finger here. So
and it's Ask that was the first
man.
Yeah, first man cut from an ash tree.
From
Husk
driftwood in
and
some translations.
yeah.
Remember the driftwood for later, okay?
Yeah, no, yeah, driftwood, but yeah, ash tree, elm tree, husk und Embla. Yeah.
And so there's other words, like I said. So in Proto-Germanic has a couple of other words for God, right? Ansus, obviously, which refers to the tribe of, Odin's tribe, right? But they also have other terms like Reagan. This is where our term for Ragnarok comes in from, right? Ragna is this Reagan word, which means, I'm pretty sure it's cognate with the word reigns, as in like to reign, as in to rule, or even the reins of a horse in which you control them.
Sounds like regal would come
Yep.
from that as well, to
Yep,
be.
yep. But that's some. The word "rain" comes to back into English from Norman French, but it just says it's from Old Norse. So it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the word "rain" just comes from Reagan, and that's
Yeah.
why "rain" has this weird silent G in it in English, is from weird leftover from this word essentially, which comes from another word for God. Which, like I said, Reagan is the first part of the word Ragnarok, literally, doom of the gods or whatever.
Yeah, and
Um,
in Dutch you would have regeren, which is to reign, to rule.
And so, yeah, that first part, that Hrethen part, it's going to come up later on, okay? So, yeah, keep this all in mind because we're going to come back to this. And
I
another
l-
word, of course,
I
in
love when
Old
native
Germanic, another
English
word for
speakers
God
are.
is Tyr, right?
Yeah.
It's obvious it's a name of a god, but it can also kind of be used as a noun too, right? Um,
There still is some discussion if Tyr or Tiwaz was the original high god, and that Wotan Odin is either like a usurper. I believe there are um
yeah, competing
certain
theories
people
about.
within the heathen pagan community who who do discuss that.
We'll come back to some more tier stuff in a minute because yeah, this we'll get to see maybe who took over who, or who's on the scene first. But yeah, we'll all those good questions to come on later on. So when I was thinking about this word God, right? Because at the end of the video of this video here, origins of the word God, I kind of throw my hands up at the end of the video because yeah, I throw up every single possible. I pulled up so many different sources of as it being like is it a voice thing? Is it like a pouring of alcohol or some sort? Um, no one was really able to kind of settle on an answer, so it's kind of a mystery word a little bit. Um, but the first time the word God ever appears is in the Gothic Bible. Like the first time we ever like see it written anywhere and kind of actually being referred to is in the Gothic Bible. And so the word God, like I said, is actually appearing in a translation. So the first time we ever see this word in the context that we know today, it's being used in a translation. So it's being used in a translation. The Gothic Bible is a translation of the New Testament with the Gothic language, okay? And
Yeah.
so the word theos, obviously we're theology and theocracy, right? This is the word for God in Greek. This is the word that's being translated when they're like, all right, we're translating Greek into, Gothic. What word y'all want for theos? What's the highest thing y'all got? And they're asking the Gothic people, and they're like, oh, what about this word God, or their version of that, right? I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, theos comes from Proto-Hellenic, teos possibly from Proto-Indo-European, to mean to put to place, to mean, theology could mean, or theos could be like how you set up like a shrine. You set up some sacred space set apart from the profane space, right? So that way the god can come hang down or whatever. But I began to wonder, like, okay, this word, obviously when the translators needed a word for theos, right, which already has a very long history. Um, Little fun fact: do you know the word? You know the word theory?
Yeah, of course.
The word theory has this word theos in it. So when you have a theory, you actually have like a godness or kind of conception essentially. When you say a theory, yeah, you actually have like a god like idea or something.
Oh,
I thought that was
okay.
pretty crazy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Um. So, looking into the word God, which again, once again, Germanic word. I was like, how did, maybe if I can figure out why they equated these two words together, I can figure out what God really meant. We can figure out if it actually was, through pouring or libating or shouting or whatever or praying. Um, And once again, the first time the word God ever appears is in the Gothic Bible. Okay, so here's like a picture of Wulfula in the 3rd century. He is a Gothic Christian monk, and he
Yeah.
is evangelizing or whatever to the Goth people, right? So yeah, the first time the word God appears is actually this spelling G. There's actually no U. They don't have any. I don't think they put any vowels in it, but this is through some other word they figured out was a U. But the first time word God appears is actually GU, and then our thorn letter, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, which is a TH sound. Okay, so yeah, gut or gut or something like that, right? So eventually, gut or gut turns into God. Okay. Um, Once again, so this is the first spelling of God. I think I have a picture here in the Codex Argentum. I think that's the name of it. But yeah, it's like one of these Wolfula Gothic Bibles they have. They actually have some pretty cool. Now check this out, okay? Here's actually some Gothic script here. It looks really cool. This is a page from the Gothic Bible. But if you look
I've
at the
seen that
Gothic
one. Yeah.
script, look at the script. It's a weird mix of Greek and Old Futhark.
Yeah, that's definitely the Elder Futhark. I mean, I recognize a lot of the names, Berkana, Gebo,
Yeah, Mana.
um,
Well, we're some like obviously
Hagalas,
Fehu right
Ladus,
here.
Nautis,
Perthra,
Bunyo,
Urus,
Tribas, Raido, Pethrus, Petra, Urus, Othala.
Othal,
Yeah.
Nauths.
Feu,
But yeah, so
which
this
is
is Gothic is a weird mix of, like I said, Greek alphabet and Old Futhark runes, or I should say Elder, I guess, Elder.
Elder
Uh,
Futhark. Yeah, sure.
and yeah, Theuth, kind of the Thorin letter, right? Which is one here. So yeah, Gothic is an interesting little anomaly in the scene here for all this sort of stuff. Okay, and this Asa, Onsus, this letter is going to come back. I have some more stuff I could expound on this letter earlier, right? Which is connected with Os and Osir and Onsus and ancestors, another concept that it's also associated with, as well as breath. Okay, all things to kind of be remembered here for later on, because this idea of ancestors is like your ancestors live on through you, through the breath that you take. You still have the same oxygen or air or lungs breathing in the same life spirit, right? That's very cognate with this Onsus, or I should show you the Elder Futhar rune. Sorry,
And it
I think I'll
makes
send this
sense
one
that,
too.
it's breath and breathing as well, because it was, Vod and Vili and Ve, the three
Yes,
brothers who
yes,
breathed life into us, who breathed life into the
exactly.
very first humans.
Yes, exactly. And once again, the first ancestor in the Norse thing is a guy named Asker, literally ash tree, cognate with the exact same concept again. And even that sound, the ah, it's cognate with the soft a sound, right? So Asir, os. It's
Yeah.
literally ah. It's like an outward breath. So, Gothic Bible, first time the word God appears is in the Gothic Bible. And then it becomes really apparent, wait a second. So the Goths, they called themselves actually Gutans, okay? This is like, a later sort of different version of this name, but they called themselves back in the day, they called themselves Gutans. And so the Gothic word Gutan, to pour, is related to their name. And you go, wait a freaking second. Remember, like I've been saying, this word God, Proto-Indo-European from gu to pour. But then the people that first used that word themselves, they called themselves Gutans to poor guys or something, and they all coalesce here in this Gothic Bible. So it's just like, wait a second. The word God and Goth both come from like the same etymos. They both come from like this same Proto-European root potentially. Like, do you see like the
I mean,
weird
yeah,
Jormungandr circle question about this whole thing?
as we mentioned with the rune, like the THD, how it's kind of interchangeable. I mean, we're seeing that in goth and god. We're seeing that
Exactly.
in guth or gut. So
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely, it comes from the same source. I don't see how people are claiming that it's not, because it clearly is.
And the first time that this word appears is in their Bible. And both of these words are related. And the only way I've been trying to explain to people, I'm from Texas, right? I'm a Texan. And it'd be like as if me as a Texan wrote like a new text or a new Bible or whatever, and my word for God was Tex. I'm a Texan and my highest God, his name is Tex. It's just like, what the heck? Like, that's literally what freaking happened here.
And like it also made me, uh, like makes me think that like when like the very first Christian missionaries perhaps were trying to ask, like, okay, who is God? Like who is your God? Who do you equate as God? It's
Yeah,
like,
like this
oh,
this scene.
well, good, or
Yeah,
Godon. He is the most high to us. Okay, well then that's the translation for God. Then that is
exactly.
God.
Right,
Yeah.
this scene right here, right? Wolflow's like, yeah, what's your what do y'all call yourselves that, or what do y'all call yourselves? Oh, we're descendants of Goth or Guth. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, yeah. What do you do? What's like your highest, God, or what's your highest theos? Goth. Yeah, they just keep using the same word, and so he's like, all right, yeah, we'll just use that finally. So that's why I have this image
I
here
can
that I
imagine it
made.
also being a little frustrating at first. It's like, yes, God. Who is your God? Oh, God. Good. Yes.
And I've heard
But
people say
who?
that when he's translating for Theos, where is that picture here, right? When he's translating Theos, how can they pick God and maybe not Os, right? Which Os is a pretty common term for God in all the Norse literature or whatever, right? Even some Proto-Germanic or maybe other Germanic stuff. But it's always the word term Os is always associated with Odin and his bunch, right? So Reagan is a little more neutral in some cases, right? But Os as a god is always, always, always associated with Odin's tribe. And so, when they're trying to pull him away from the heathen tribes, the, genus or whatever, right? Then it's like, we probably don't want to use Os and Os here because you can't not talk about Odin if you're talking about Os and Os here.
Yeah, like
But
Odin
once
is a
again,
pagan god. It's not
we're going to do
Christian, so
some
we're kind of
circling
need a
back
new
anyway.
name. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. It makes sense. It's a new religion, if you will, but the same high god or same sort of high god. But you can't call it Odin because that's the old god.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
then we're just gonna go with Goth, good, whoever.
And yes, I'm so glad that you're able to see like this interchanging of th and d, and it's just how these two words are phonetically goth and god, and, like they're so close anyway now in modern times. But yeah, even guton and gut, it's the same thing, right? So
And
this is the thing I would
come to
expand
think of
upon
it,
here.
in modern German, in the today's German language, Gott, mein Gott, is
Mm-hmm.
spelled Gott.
Mm-hmm.
So that is basically still the same. Just instead of a D, it's a double T because I don't know, Germans.
And this also holds over to another famous last name, as in Wolfgang von Goethe, Goethe. But we that H is kind of silent or kind of strangely silent, right? Goethe means God. His name means God, apparently. Okay, and the reason it's got this silent th thing in his name is because it's a weird holdover between the theta and the thorn sound. So yeah, Wolfgang von Goethe, yeah, Wolf something, Wolf clan of God, right? Is kind of what his name would mean or something. And I always make the
Oh,
irony of like, okay, so the guy whose last name is God also wrote the most famous rendition of the story of a deal with the devil. Like, it's kind of ironic.
it's almost like it was fated to be.
Oh, I got some more. I got more on that tangent here in a little bit. Okay, I asked you to remember some driftwood, but that'll come up. So yeah, you're seeing it here. When we talk about other stuff, so yeah, the Goths, like I said, they call themselves like Gutons, but all these classical writers I'm going to be talking about in a minute, they called them Gittones and Githones and Gittones, and so it's so many different variations of this name that we're talking about, just to kind of clarify for some people as they go along, because it was a real headache trying to just parse it all out. So yeah, the Goths are Gittones, but they're also maybe related to the Gittae, and maybe also the Geats and the Gitas. The Geats are what Beowulf is actually. So yeah, this is all going to be coming back around. Okay. What's
Gitas.
up?
Why?
What's up with these Goths and Geats, man? They're everywhere.
Why when like you're talking about Gitas, my mind for some reason, for some reason because it very much sounds alike, and since we're doing sounds and everything, the Bhagavad Gita.
I hadn't thought of that actually. Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that is a very, well, ancient text, supposedly going back to, the Indo-Europeans, or the Indo-Aryans. And if I do remember correctly, the very first kind of Christian faith that the Goths held was um, Aryan Christianity.
Yes, all that stuff is going to come. A lot of those concepts are going to come back to this Gothic stuff and that ancestor thing we're going to talk about in a minute too. Yes, actually, very very close. You're right where we're going to be headed to actually. So yeah, all that stuff is going to come back around. So yes, keep that in mind as we go back to that ancestor thing and the Aryan thing, Christianity thing. That's very 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 relevant. So just a quick sourcing, because we're talking about, was Odin the usurper over Tiwaz or Tyr or whatever? And just to kind of go back to some of these early mentions of the Goths, because it's going to be all kind of relevant here. So in the first century BC, we got Pliny the Elder here mentioning, the Vandals, who I mentioned earlier, right? That's where our word vandalism comes from, right? And so
Yeah.
on. But yeah, he mentions the Guttones and all these other Germanic tribes of sorts, right? Kind of talk about where they're living.
Burgundians, that is Burgundy,
Burgundy.
or Bourgogne, which is a region in France.
Yeah, yeah.
The Verine, hmm, Cherini,
Cimbri, yeah,
those.
definitely get maybe
Yeah,
Welsh, but
Cambria.
that's
Yeah,
yeah, but that's all the way in Wales, and I'm not that sure that's who he's talking about. Yeah, but the Cimbri and the Teutons are another Germanic tribes. But yeah, I wonder if Cimbri and Camber and Kimmer and all that sort of stuff is related. That's an interesting word for me too. But yeah, so just going through the quick first mentions of when these Goth people kind of pop on the scene. Okay, so at least the Goths as we think of at least what we think of them. Okay, because the Gittite people might come up in a little bit too. So Pliny the Elder, first century BC, right? And then a little bit after that, we got Tacitus in the first century AD, right? He writes about the Guttones, and he also writes about their sacrifices and essentially of like weapons and stuff that they hang from trees. Of course, I think he specifically mentions like swords maybe being hung from trees. So yeah, swords are definitely like a tier thing, but then hanging is definitely like an Odin thing, So I don't know. It's kind of
yeah,
an
and it's
interesting like
it's
mix of those two.
always it's always the trees. We mentioned the ash and the elm already. Thor, being the associated with the oak tree.
Yep,
Um, so that's why the like basic thing is that, oh, if we want to worship our gods, we go into the woods, because
yep.
that's where our gods are.
And this idea of the woods are going to come back later too. So yeah, just going through these things. So this is the first century AD. This is Tacitus, and then we get Ptolemy. He's a different Ptolemy. He's writing like a little hundred years after that ish. He writes about the Githones and some of these same people, same stuff, right? So we're just kind of tracking the movement of these peoples here. Um, so here's my line of thought is like, okay, well, if we don't know what God meant, you know, but this word Goth or Guttoni is really, really close. Maybe if we can figure out why they called themselves this, if we can figure out why they named themselves the Gutons, then maybe we can backtrace it to what this root means, right? So that was kind of my line of thinking about, all right, let's look up about everything about these people, because they're the first ones to use this word anyway. And then maybe since they're related, we can backtrack it and then land on what this one means in a little more solid sense, right? So that was where my mind is going. This is where all this is going to be beginning. So the rest of this presentation is me going through all the different possibilities of what Goth or Guttones means. Like, why did those, like I said, Longobards means long bearded people.
Yeah,
Alemanni means all men. So all of them kind of have reasons for like, etymology. They have reasons why they picked that name or call themselves that, right? So I've got all these
Alemanni,
different,
Alemania. Yeah,
so I've got
that's
all these different etymologies for what Goth or Guton. I'll use that pretty interchangeably here. But yeah, if you're ready to roll, I'll go through all these. I've got 4 different ones here about why the Goths or Gutons called themselves that.
yeah. Let's go.
So
Love this.
going back into the etymology, the Proto-Indo-European pour, gu, right? This one, I don't have a quick one right. Oh, to pour, right? So the question is, what are they pouring? Some people are like it's libations or it's sacrificial blood. And this first one here, I'm going to say it's maybe this idea of pouring sperm or to spawn, maybe related to the idea of fatherhood and being begotters of some sort. So yeah, let's look at this one of these first claims here. Guton, to pour, to spawn, probably relating to gush. The strong verb guton is likely to have risen as a back formation of this iterative. Oh, that wasn't relevant, but yeah. So yeah, relating to this idea of pouring seed, right? So the this is from, which book is this from? I forget. Let's just read this real quick because yeah, we're just and even the people like Tacitus and people like these Roman people maybe would have viewed the Germans as these like these pestilent spawns of mosquitoes or rabbits that fornicate in the far north and come down and raid everything. So let's read this real quick. It has
I
therefore
mean,
been
they're
assumed
not
that
wrong.
it has therefore been assumed that the Scandinavian Gautar were the original tribe and the Gutones, Goths, split off from them, meaning that the name Gutones must be secondary. In the meantime, however, confidence in the origin saga and Jordanus, which we'll be talking about a little bit, has been shaken off. Anyway, so they're going to conclude that Guton is primarily deverbal agenitive formation, probably meaning sperm pourer, equal men. So Guton is maybe some kind of, just means like the men or the guys or something, right? Because it's this idea of pouring your seed out everywhere or just be prolific or whatever. In Old Norse, you got very close related words, right? So in Old Norse, gotar is a poetic term for man. And I was wondering, we have these words begot and begat and begot. And I wonder if these are related to this idea of pouring seed, right? Because to begot, usually connotated with a fatherhood oftentimes, but it could be referred to parents. But oftentimes it's referred to specifically fathers, right? And, back to seed
Begot,
pouring sperm, right?
to be got, to be the progenitor, to be the
Yes.
ones.
Yeah,
Oh,
to continue the flow, to continue
yeah,
the
yeah,
line, right?
yeah.
Um,
The bringer
so
of
yeah,
life, the creator of life, in a way.
exactly. So yeah, people wonder if Goths and Gutones is related to this idea of father, related to the idea of pouring sperm and seed and that sort of stuff, right? But really, to bring this back to the idea of like being prolific breeders or being very impregnable, Old Norse goti is also poetic for horse, okay? And this relation of horse and the Goths are going to be really, really heavy here. And even if you go type up, classical paintings of the Goths, here's an Arnold Backlund painting of the Goths, our famous Wotan painter, right? The Hitler one. No, that's not Hitler. That's Von Stuck. I'm so dumb. Backlund is
And
he does the really cool one of the Sharon, the going to the Isle of the Dead or whatever.
interesting thing that just came to mind about the goatee. If you put an H in between that, so you get the th again, a gothi, which is a holy
Priest.
man,
Yep.
priest, shaman
Yep.
of some kind.
It's all, yep, exactly, dude. All these words are kind of floating around this sort of like weird nexus of related terms. So yes, you're very spot on for relating that word too, because it's definitely going to come back up again as well. I keep promising all this stuff will come back up, but yes, yeah, you're on the right track already. And once again, that word still is it somehow still related to the Goths, right? This idea of why they got their names from that. But so yeah, here's once again I was talking about the Umbrian old Goth and Gothi and horse impregnable related stuff. Maybe this is the idea of fatherhood, strong horse stuff. And looking at all these classical or paintings of the Goths, right? They're always on horses, right? They're always attested to being with horses all the time, right? You look them up, Sack and Brun, and they're riding on horses. So yeah, Goths and horses, very, very strong association that's still going to come up later on. And I just want to draw attention to it here.
I mean, the in like with the horses, some of the, well, let's say more Germanic breeds, like the Frisian horse, for example, it is like one of the, if not like the biggest and strongest horse there is. And ancient Frisia wasn't really a part of the Germanic kingdom, the Germanic tribes, if you will. That was, they really set themselves apart. You had the Frisians and then the Germani, but they had to be, of course, in close contact. And cattle in of itself was, very important. Like you needed a strong horse or an oxen to plow the field. That's it. That is why the rune Fehu is associated with both wealth and cattle.
Yes, yeah. So you kind of just see the importance of this animal in general, and yeah, maybe why they would want to embody some of its attributes, right? Um, so yeah, this here's so once again, first maybe meaning is guton meaning men or father or pourer of sperm. I'll show you later on that Jackson Crawford will translate Gotter, related term, to being father, related to all these things. Okay. So, moving on. Second etymology, Goth as a hydronym, as in men of Gotland or Gotaland or Gotelfer or something. Because once again, Goth or Gu, this potential root meaning to pour. So some people say, the Goths, uh, or it's a place name, right? And so they're called, so Goths thus probably means originally goods from Goth, or people from, Goth, or, this Got Elver, these flowing, rushing places, okay? Um, yeah, Got to elf of the gods, so called. Got means namely shedding, flowing, rapid currents. So yeah, some people wondering if, with all these sort of, gushing lakes down here and these people, some people will say that this one historian guy we'll talk about in a minute, he thinks that the Goths come from Skansa, and so it's like, does he mean Scandinavia? So it's kind of fun to think
I
about
mean,
these Goths
in
as these proto-Viking people coming from, inhabiting this area with all these, very Viking boat-esque kind of places or whatever. Here's
I
Gotha
mean, you
Alf.
still have Gotland in
Yep,
Sweden, I believe Göteborg, indeed, which
yep.
is a pretty big city in Sweden, and I mean, you can probably even take that back to like all the way to Hyperborea if you're like into that. People from the north keep going more south. The same story as the Kivarus, for example.
And so yeah, people thinking that they're maybe that the Goths call themselves this because of these gushing river place, right? And but although it's kind of weird because they'll say Gota Alv translates to river of the Geats, but then they're saying if Geats means people from the gushing river, this would mean that this is the river of the people from the rushing river. That's just kind of redundant and ironic once again. Um, I'm not sure if I'm sold on the toponym. I don't know if these places got their names from the Goths or whatever, or if the Goths got their name from coming from this place, right? Like we've got a chicken or the egg problem with this particular claim.
I mean, it is. You'll see it very often that in history that the people name themselves after the place that they are from. Um, like you'll see that in medieval history, for example, that they'll the knights will call themselves after the castle that they are
Yeah,
loyal to.
defeat or whatever.
For example, yeah, the fiefdom, whatever.
Or defeat, like, because it reminds, I know, like, Roman generals will get names if they go and defeat the place. So
Yeah, no, exactly, and it makes a lot of sense. Before like last names were really a thing. I would be staying from that and that place, because that's really the only way that you could identify yourself, that you stood out from everyone else.
yeah, yeah, and imagine, there's got to be some ethno mythos thing that's probably binding it all together, right? They must have gone through some ordeal or survived something, right? That's why the Longobards kind of banned, because they're combating with the Vandals, whoever, I don't remember, but um, and so yeah, just looking through all these, got name places in Scandinavia, or even apparently down here, yeah, this is Scandinavia, right? But this is even continental Europe here too. And so this is a video
No,
by Jackson Crawford, and
Denmark
they were
is
talking.
still Scandinavia, but yes.
And so yeah, in this video by Jackson Crawford, they were just talking about all these gut got name places and wondering like, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? Where I'm going to be like, I'll make some claims here about why this is, because they're what is the home of the gods, if it's Gutem or Gutheim or whatever. But I'm tracking this goo root, and so they're saying was this place named after, Guth, or this, or which one comes before the other, right? And so, once again, I'll circle back, especially when we get down a little later on. I start hopefully dropping the mic. So just, looking at all these place names, still tracking this Goth, Guth, Guton route here, okay? And wondering, I'm just showing more place names. Here's like an interesting study that they were doing on one of these settlements here. I would definitely go look at it. They found a bunch of gold and a bunch of really cool stuff. So, moving on, third etymology, Goth, or Gutone being an ethnonym. Once again, kind of going back into pour, but are they pouring blood or libations, or are they sacrificing? Is that what Goth means, or we're the blood pourers or libationers or the sacrificers or something? So here's one of these attestation again. Oh, do I not have my entry? I have another one where, that people will say that Gutones or Goths is related to that, but let's read Jordanus real quick. He's writing like the 700s, 600s. He's writing this thing called the Getica. So he writes like the history of the Goths. Some people think a lot of, some of his history apparently is sound, but then he also goes into the Goths like in biblical Egypt times and all this sort of stuff. And so that's when historians are like, nah, he's crazy. Don't listen to that stuff. But he's one of those sources we got. So here's one of his things that he kind of said.
Yeah, he wrote
this
that
Mars
in or shortly after 551 AD.
For what now?
Oh, the Getica.
Oh, yes. Okay.
The origin and deeds of the Getae was written in or shortly after 551 AD.
Yeah, so 6th century. Remember, we already talked about Tacitus and hanging stuff from trees, so here, let's hear some more of this stuff again. This Mars the Goths have always placated with cruel practices, since his victims were dead captives, thinking that the governor of warfare would be pleased properly by the shedding of men's blood. Once again, is this what they mean here by sacrificing or pouring of blood? To him they offered the first booty. For him, weapons were hung from trees, and more than others that had a stronger sense of religion, since their worship of the god they regarded as bestowed upon their ancestor.
Sounds very Wotanic.
Exactly, right? We're going to come back to Jordanus and back to this claim again. But yeah, just thinking this idea of, does Guton or Goth mean dudes who sacrifice stuff? And here's the Adam of Bremen account. This is hundreds of years later, right? This is in Viking Age officially now. This is 11th century. But here's just Adam of Bremen talking about the same Odinic stuff, right? About hanging stuff from trees or whatever, right? And so, I just had this quote up here to kind of relate these two cultures here. And there's a tree hanging thing, a motif that's maybe relevant. And I know there's a hanging god, like, what is it? Attis? Maybe Attis is kind of like one of these dying and rising gods who is like nailed to a tree or something too. So maybe that's related, or hung from a tree. I forget.
It's interesting that the text says that they offer 9 heads, because we of course very closely associate the number 9 with Odin and with the Yggdrasil, the tree that he himself hung himself from, to eventually understand the magic of the runes. So very
and this is
interesting.
definitely probably talking about Odin, because this is Adam of Bremen. This is straight Viking Age, well into it too. So this is him at the Temple of Uppsala. So that's most definitely probably what he's talking about, right? Definitely some Odinic stuff. And I'm just relating it, hey, these Goths kind of doing something very similar hundreds of years before that. And then Tacitus kind of writing something very similar about the Goths hundreds of years before that, right? So the constant tree hanging stuff, right?
I mean, that must have been a major part of their practice. If they keep doing that, if they keep, practicing in the same way, offering in the same way for, hundreds of years, you almost think that, it would be to the same god then as well, because I mean, clearly it's working.
Yep. And yeah, exactly. And so back to this whole idea of like, are they pouring blood? Are they pouring libations? Are they generally just into sacrificing stuff to their gods? This is a clip from Survive the Jives documentary on the swastika. But in this section, they talk about this term alu, probably related to this, another word for ale, right? And that the ale and swastika are always usually pretty associated with Odin, right? And talking about this, once again, this idea of maybe libations is really important. And Storley Sturluson's Skald's, I can't pronounce, Skald's Coppermall, uh, we've got the story of Odin, right? Who he kind of slays some people, he kind of sacrifices some people to eventually kind of get the meat of poetry, right? So in this context, is the use of Kvasir's blood to make a fermented drink connected to a sacrificial aspect of brewing, perhaps? Is that related to the Goth name? Is that related to why they chose this thing? Because once again, we're into this whole sacrifice bit. Maybe this is part of the same sort of process or motif or something, right? Um, it, much like so yeah, could the sacrifice translation for the word Gotr be multi-layered? Gotr being, pour or father, but is it not just pouring of sacrificial blood, but pouring of libations of ale or mead to symbolically represent blood, not unlike the Christian Eucharist transforming wine into blood? So Guton could mean the guys who sacrifice their alcohol, or the guys who make sacred pours, or something like that.
I mean, it is still a very, very popular, very easy offering that you can make to the gods. If you don't really, like want to go all out and just a small ritual, just do it at home, and you don't really know what to offer. Like, I mean, quite literally, pour them a drink. You can really never
Yep,
go
yep.
wrong with
So,
that.
that practice of mead and alcohol, maybe that's goes deep into their culture, right? So here we're kind of approaching the end of my claims, and so the fourth etymology is Goth a theophoric name or a name from like a god, right? And we've got this quote from Jordanus, and he's going to say that the Goths hail from this main hero whose name was Got. So here's a little picture of Jordanus. He's writing the, like he said earlier, the origin and deeds of the Goths. Once again, people think some of his timeline is a little wacky, but he's one of the few sources we got on these people. So we'll see what he has to say. The first reliable attestation of Gutones is found in Pliny. I already kind of told you all about that. So here we go. Let's skip down. The etymological kinship between the name stems Guton and Gauta is much beyond doubt, as in their relation to the Germanic verb Guta, pour, right? This relationship is supported by information in Jordanus, according to which the original ancestor of the Goths bear the name Got. Okay? And he kind of says, they come from Scanda, maybe Scanza, maybe that's related to Scandinavia, but that's where people don't want to believe in any of that stuff. I won't tell you right or wrong. But here's the Amali Goth kingship list or their lineage, and once again, you go all the way to the top. They have this mythic ancestor dude named Got. Doesn't that already sound like Guth and God all over again?
Yeah,
So the
absolutely.
words,
Just
this is
the
how it
very
kind of
first one,
appears in
if you
the
will.
Wolfla manuscript. And I'm just showing you the different tribes here for a quick second, because Jordanus will say that the Gittae, which are these Black Sea area Thracian people, Dacian people, and they're like in the 4th century BC, okay? So like 300s BC. We don't get the Goths until, 200 years later, in that 1st century BC, and then they're all over the rest of, that medieval, pre-medieval time period, right? And then we have the Geats, which is of the Beowulf clan, right? And they're kind of active in the 5th to 6th century or something, okay? And so Jordanus wants to say that the Gittae are the Goths and they're the same people. If we look at some of the Gothic migrations, and this is like the 300s down here. So this is the Black Sea right here, right? And you can kind of see that they're inhabiting this western Black Sea area,
Yeah.
maybe coming down from Scandinavia and doing all this sort of migration, right? Here's the Visigothic kingdom, Ostrogothic stuff. But they do come into this Black Sea area at some point, and the Gittae, although they're kind of hundreds of years before, same little Black Sea region, right? So Gittae go back to classical Greek sources, okay? So they're mentioned by the Greeks and all this sort of stuff.
And always, yeah, always following the
Yeah,
rivers,
right here.
because it is easiest. And I mean, by the Black Sea, those are very, very fertile grounds, and like pretty much everyone, back in those days, fertile grounds is what you're looking for. Like how else are you gonna farm? How else are you gonna live? And the sea itself, being a major source of food as well. What do you think of the Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest ones? A lot of fish. And that's why, probably also one of the
Very
reasons
true.
why, the Dutch go so big and strong. Like
So,
we eat a lot of fish.
in regards to are the Gitte and Goths and Guttones and Geats like all part of the same maybe ethnic culture or something? Some people wonder if they're oblots, which an oblot is a change of vowel in related words or forms in Germanic. So, for instance, sing, sang, sung. So yeah, Gitte, Guton, Goth, Geet, Gitas, are they all oblots of this Proto-Indo-European word gu? Okay. Uh,
Oblots really reminding me of Embla again, or even the what was that again? The primordial cow.
yeah, what is
I
that
wanna
cow's
look that
name?
up
I don't remember
real
either.
quick.
And so here's just where the word Gita appearing in and sea Gitas and Wetteros appearing in the Beowulf manuscript. So yeah, Gitas that's what Beowulf is, right? He's like rescuing the Danes from and all these people from Grendel or whatever, right? But Beowulf is a Geat. And so therefore is it not too far to say that Beowulf is a Goth? Has everyone ever considered that in a sense, and even if you kind of think about it, Beowulf is kind of a Gothic tale, this sort of
Could be.
is, they even use the word weird and these ideas of destiny and kingship and, time decaying things and, blah, 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 blah. Like that's all very Gothic, I would kind of say.
So- Sounds very gothic to me. Sounds like something you would read in, what we
Exactly.
nowadays recognize as a gothic novel, for example. And the primordial cow is Othumla again with the like kind of weird DTH thing. So reminds me of a lot of
Man, yeah,
that,
you go check
very
out my Gothic horror
primordial,
because
but
a
primordial
video I say
female.
I have a video titled "Gothic Horror is Viking as Hell" because there's the Viking poem Hervarg Vita or Agantir's incantation, or I'm sorry, Agantir's awakening or Hervar's incantation. It's about a shield maiden waking up the dead at some spooky island and she's wearing Gothic armor is how she's described. So I make the claim that yeah, like Gothic horror goes back to this Viking poem. Yeah.
Sounds like a hell. Sounds like a hell of a story.
Yeah,
My
go
my
check out that
wife
video because
my
yeah, I make
wife
the
would
it's got
fucking love that.
a
She'd eat
female
that
lead.
shit
She's
up.
going to a spooky place. She's uncovering stuff of the past and all this. There's ghosts, there's zombies. It's got gothic horror in spades, except that the shield maiden is like kicking ass the whole time. So, and so she's not a damsel in distress by any means. So, going yes, yeah, very much so. And yeah,
The
she's got a
true Wonder
spear.
Woman,
She's
if you will.
her dad, who's like a zombie. He wakes up. He's like, "You're out here like on this island, like casting spells. Like you're crazy." And she's like, "I don't care. Give me the magic sword." So she's awesome. But uh, continuing on this Geet thing, right? Because yeah, we're talking about Beowulf is a Geet. Is that related to the Goths? Um, we're gonna have a quote here from some more the word Geet, right? I'm relating it to the word the name God, right? So per the Goths history or the Gutons, they're like, oh, we're descended from this guy named Got. That's probably why they call themselves Gatones, like they're the Got guys. um, and so here at but a lot of the Anglo-Saxon English king lists, a lot of them go all the way up to guys named Woden and that kind of stuff, but some of them go all the way up to a guy named Geet. So yeah, this guy here is just talking about, all this lineage here. And he just says that, Frithwulf of Finn and Finn of Godwulf and Godwulf of Geet, who, as they say, was the son of a god, not of the Christian omnipotent blah, 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 blah god, but the offspring of one of their idols, of whom blinded by some demon they worshipped. Yeah, so it's funny. He's like, yeah, Godwulf, son of God, but not that God.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. Finn, I'd be very. I'm not sure if you're going into that. Sorry if I'm like skipping way ahead, but I'm wondering if there's some
I wouldn't be surprised, yeah, with some of those
Celtic
names.
Tuatha De Danann connection as well.
And so throughout Beowulf, the Geats, we're trying to see if they're related to the Goths, are also called Wettergeats, wind geats, or Wetters, wind folk, or Sea Geetas, sea geets. Tolkien, as in J.R.R. Tolkien, I have his translation up here, takes it a step further in his translation, connecting the terms Geotana Leoda and Hrethmana. Remember we talked about that Hreth earlier, Hreth? Geotana Leoda, I don't want to pronounce this, I'll butcher the Old English, but he
Yeah.
translates it as the Gothic Knights, the strong band of Hrethmen. Wait a second, not those Gothic Knights, that's not what I meant, right? So moving on. So yeah, Tolkien makes the case that Hrethmana could be identified as a national name
Yeah.
instead of the usually translated noble hosts or men. Hreth is an Old English verb that appears twice elsewhere, variant forms Hroth and Hrothar, and verb Hrethen, exalted, triumph, with the premise of it being one of sound, or exultation, shouting in triumph. So Hreth is like Hroth, or yeah, or whatever. Forms part of personal names like Hrethric and Hrothgar and Hrothwulf. Hrothulf. The element Hreth is, according to Tolkien, associated with the Goths, Old English Goton. Therefore, Hreth Goton, an Old English poem Widsith, and Kenilwulf's poem Elene or Elena, here Goths, Hreths can stand alone. So Hretha here is an army of Goths. Hreth and another Old English element Hrod corresponds to Old Norse Hred, or Hreth, right? As in Hreth Gotar, correlating the Goths with riding cavalry, as I already said earlier, right? With all those paintings and maybe even this idea of being impregnable horses and super horse people or whatever. They're already hanging out in that Black Sea steppe region anyway, so it makes sense with all this cavalry association too.
Oh, I mean that then there must be a Celtic connection there because they of course have Epona, the goddess of the horses, and which Tolkien of course beautifully works into his Lord of the Rings stories with Eowyn, and the Rohirrim, which is very very Celtic, very very cool. And I believe if I remember correctly from what I have researched a little bit, it was in many battles that the where the Goths or the Goth tribes really were involved in, that it was their cavalry and the strength of their cavalry that really was the deciding factor in a lot of these battles, carrying a heavy spear
And
as
apparently,
well. So there's
bringing back some more
more
Tolkien
spear
terms,
connection
Gothic
again,
folk
if you
had
will.
their own sacral king called a Theodons, which is what Jordanes said. So it's Thorn, exactly. Theoden even sounds like Theoden, right? King of the Rohan,
Theodons,
the horse
Theoden,
riding
okay.
dudes.
Theoden King, nice.
In this same bit and the notes, actually, Tolkien also brings
That's
up
awesome.
Odin as a
That's really
storm
cool.
wind god associated with the wild hunt and connects Hreth and Hred to Old English and Old Norse Hrith or storm. So yeah, still Odin's still floating around here no matter what. Just can't seem to get away no matter what. And dude, I'm
Yeah,
about to bring it home, about to knock this out of the park, right? Because we're talking about the Goths. Well, related to this guy named Got, probably related to Geet, this ancient, mythical king in even Old English, right? And corresponding related to Beowulf, mythic super warrior hero dude, right? So let's go into some Old Norse stuff because I'm about to bring up Grimnismal and bring this all back home, okay? So Gotar, this is just some Old Norse stuff. Getas, and to be distinguished from Gotar Goths, hence Gotland, the land of the Goths, all this sort of stuff, okay? Now, the next word down, Gotter. Oops, I went too far. Gotter, a poetic name of Odin. It seems to mean father, as what it usually gets translated to often sometimes, but I'm going to show you all these different translations of this word specifically, and that no one can pick it because it's still got this gu root, so they can't tell if it's about pouring seed like a father or pouring libations or all this sort of stuff, right? And so, once again, yeah, I already just said that Got, G-A-U-T, where is that word up here, right? Got is the mythic name. Got is the mythic name of the Goths, right? Their mythic ancestor. Here's the Molly
yeah,
King
he
list.
is.
It goes all the way up to Got and cognate with Geet, and that Gotter is one of Odin's most
Yeah.
frequent names. He is the All Father, right?
I mean, Odin is the All Father, you know, the father of
So
all
here is the
the
last
gods,
stanza in
basically. So,
Grimnismal, right? The
yeah,
sayings of the Grimna one,
absolutely.
aka Odin. And here's where he's just dropping all these names, like I'm this name, I'm that name, I'm blah 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 blah. And here's like the last one, the last ones he says. He says, Gotter och Jalker met Gotham. They basically among the gods, they called me Gotter and Yelker. Okay. So I have all these different translations. Let's see what they all the yellow is the translations for Gotter. Okay. Yalker definitely seems to mean horse, like male horse of some sort, right? So we're still getting this association with horses and goths. I'm gonna make about to make here in a second, because so Gotham is supposed to mean gods. That's what most people translate it as. So here we go. So maker for Gotter. That's kind of the same word for procreator or begotter or father, right? So they called me maker and yawk among the gods. Um, Here's Jackson Crawford's
Yeah,
2023
sure.
translation. I don't know why he did this, but if you'll notice, it's Gotterok Yelker. So got first and then Yalker. Got first and then Yalker. And for some reason, he like switched it. Gelding is just another word for male horse. But for some reason, he switched these, and I don't know why he did that. And he doesn't even add among the gods, which is kind of annoying. So yeah, he like omitted this part right here, this Meth
Uh,
Gotham among gods. That both gelding and father among gods. He just took that out. Maybe he changed it in his new one that he just released. I don't know. I emailed him for an interview, but I don't know if he'll want to hear my criticism of this. Um, so
Hey,
so
any good
here's some
writer
more
will take,
translations.
will take
Here they'll
criticism.
translate got and gotter to be father, back to that first etymology, right? But here's a new one. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, Gotter means Gotlander or Goth or sacrifice. And so this one's like all over the place, right? They're like, I have no freaking clue. um, this one reads, they translate Gotter to mean sacrifice again. Because in another one, they'll say like, oh, Alden Galter should mean ancient sacrifice or whatever. Got, here's the last two I have. Got meaning sacrifice or inhabitant of Gotland. Well, this is the chicken and the egg problem going like, oh, Goth is a person from Gotland, and Gotland are where the Goths are from. It's just like, okay, this doesn't help. So yeah, it's basically everything we already went through for God, right? Or Gutan, that they all end up being either sacrifice or father or something along those lines, or even Goth or Gotland person.
Or, you know, libation, but at least, you know, connected to, you know, some
And
sort
so,
of
yeah, the
god
word
or
Gauta
sacrifice,
or
high
God appears in other
gods
things,
or
right? So here's
father.
another one, Gauta Tyr, and people will translate it to mean Tyr, meaning God. And so God of the Gautar, which I already said earlier, kind of means like, Geats or Goths in a lot of cases, right? So God of the Goths. Um, but, so yeah, once again, one of the most frequent Odin names. Odin's most frequent by name is Eager, right? Obviously Yggdrasil, and he's always called the terrible one, right? But his second most frequent name in the literature is this word here, Gater, which once again I just showed you. No one can really tell what it means. Does it mean father? Does it mean maker? Does it mean like sacrifice? Does it mean goth? Like what? And then once again, what does even goth even mean? Um,
I mean, fathers,
that's true.
you know, speaking as a, as a father myself, we do sacrifice a lot. Like we, you know, sacrifice a lot for our family. We sacrifice a lot for, you know, our wife, our kids, you know, to be the provider, because, you know, we are the heads of the family. We are, well, the old father, if you will, you know. So I, yeah, I can see how those,
Right. Yeah. There's a
I
weird
mean, not like are
interchangeability,
the
or
same
there's
things,
like
but mean the
there
same
could be a
things, or have
multi-layered meaning
the
between all those
same.
things, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not uncommon with, you know, a lot of these ancient texts, or a lot of these older texts, that, you know, one thing means
Yeah,
multiple things. It's very much a, you know, a thing of the modern age, that we have to simplify everything. That, you know,
exactly,
this
exactly.
means
And
this, and, you know,
for
that's it.
instance,
This cannot mean
remember
that
I
because
talked
it
about
means this already.
Ansu's a bunch of different ideas associated with that rune. Obviously, not just like ancestor and breath, but because it's also associated with the breath, in Old English cognates, it's associated with the mouth, and even like os in Latin also means like river or like mouth of a river. And so even like when you're speaking and breathing, what do they say? Like when you're like really tuned in, you're like in a flow, right? There's something liquidity about if you're like really tapping into your speech patterns or something, right? And so yeah, once again, this idea of like
Yeah.
flowing and rivers and even other connotations, yeah, maybe not so easy to nail down as just being like one definition.
Water and liquidity and stuff, which I hope to do a show on soon with General Shinobi. He's also another one of
Yeah.
those guys who loves to dive deep. There you go again with your water. Um, and he there was, well, at the time of recording yesterday on the Bush Whisperer
Uh,
roundtable, the occult
I'll
roundtable.
bring
He
it, dude.
already
I'll
made a
how
lot
about
of
this? Okay,
beautiful
so
like
let me.
water
So
flow
remember,
kind
we've
of
been talking
connections.
about
So I
if the
hope
word
to
God itself means to like to pour something, right? There's definitely some a little bit of this liquid connotation to it too, perhaps, right? Is it libations, or is it blood, or is it a pouring out of a prayer through speech or something, right? Um,
and water is connected in so many of these origin stories as well. I mean, kind of with the Norse as well, because it is from the
yeah,
drops of of ice. It is from
exactly.
the steam drops really that the primordial cow came into being. It was primordial ice, primordial fire. So there, you go again with your water, which became steam, which cooled off from the drops, formed, the
Now check
primordial
this out,
cow
okay?
and the
So yeah, if
primordial
water is so
ice
pregnant, like you're just saying,
giant
okay, and if
and
the word
and
God
everything.
itself
So
has got to do this idea of like
water,
flowing
drink your
water,
water.
right? Maybe even like, relating to your idea of ancestors and even the ecology and blah, 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 right? Now think about a bunch of modern terms that seem to be trying to disturb this unbroken flow from God, perhaps, right? This gushing, this gooing from God, once again, the principles of water, like you just expounded upon, right? Like steam and ice and, procreation, the mixing of elements. How many modern terms and words today seem to be trying to get their way in front of controlling this flow, right? What do we deal with? What's the root of all evil? Money. But what do we also call it? We call it currency. Where do they control currency? In the banks, right? What do we do that so
Currency. Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah,
Now they
and
want to take that
how do
away
you
too, right? Give you a
how are you
robot
born through
robot
the
woman or whatever.
birthing
But even what do we also
canal?
do
The
when we
canal.
are,
It's yeah.
what's modern humans or first world nation humans? We're so caught up with our entertainment. We're so busy streaming things, right? Filling our own mind's eye constantly with other media at all times, and so interrupting the flow of God or something, right? I thought I had one other one.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, yes,
And
yeah.
that's
There you
that's
go.
why like stealing from those streams, if you will, is pirating. I mean, the first 9 months of our development, we are in the womb. We are in in the water, in like life's water, vruchtwater, fruit water. Really, if you translate it quite literally from Dutch. So we
Exactly, and back to
that's
that 9-month thing
where
too.
we
But yes,
develop,
so I wonder
literally
if all these
in
disruptions of
water.
godly flow is part of the problems we have today. And so, to wrap this up, because I'm trying not to I try to have like my points here. Once again, we wondered like, okay, the word God first appears in the Gothic Bible. The Goths say that they are descended from a guy named Got, and that all these words apparently all have the same etymology, this guru, and that one of Odin's most frequent names, most probably, once I get, talking about all this hanging stuff that the Goths are apparently associated with, sounds very Odinic. One of Odin's most frequent names is Gotr. Literally, it's just got an extra R on top of Got, right? And he even says they called me Gotr and big sturdy horse thing among the gods, right? Gotham is supposed to be gods here, right? But I almost wonder if it's like a pun because Gotham, almost like they called me Got and Yalker among the Goths or the Gotones. The Gotones called me Gotter, not just the gods, but the Goths. I wonder if this is like a weird pun. Yeah, I wonder if this is like a weird pun with this word. And so instead of being among gods, they call
Among the
me,
gods and among the
father or
goths.
whatever
Oh
among
shit,
the
yeah.
goths or gutones or whatever, That's where my mind kind of goes with some of that stuff. And so once again,
I mean, being very proficient in, poetry, skaldic poetry and everything, leave it
exactly.
up to
Yes.
Odin to
Yes.
make
Thank you. And
a
so
connection like that
once
to,
again, this whole
put
journey
a
started with
twist
me wondering,
on those things.
hey,
Oh,
is
that's a
God
fascinating one.
contracted
Yeah,
from an
yeah, yeah.
Odin name? And them going like, no, it's not. But yet anyway, this word God pretty much phonetically sounds like got, is definitely etymologically related to got, is related to Odin anyway. So Odin is, every time you say God, you're saying one of Odin's names anyway. So it was Odin the whole time. So that's what I've been saying is like every time you type or say, "Oh my God," does Odin get a royalty? Like, is he getting a little bit of a little bit of that that passive income
Uh,
every time you say, praise God or blah 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 blah? You're just saying one of Odin's names. You're saying this name that the Goths said that they descend from, which is most scholars would be
oh,
like, yeah, we think
and
God is probably this Odin, either another name for Odin or another god that Odin absorbed. We don't really know. They're definitely connected, and I'm like, yo, but this word God is related to this word. And they're like, so? It's like, no, guys, like, come on. So every time you say God, you're saying Odin.
it would make sense why the church really would want to, give that name a new meaning. There's a lot of power in that name. I mean, if it's Odin, geez, there's a lot of power within that name. So yeah, as some, as a establishments trying to, convert the people to, to your beliefs. I mean, they freaking occupied everything already. They took, so much already and made it their own. It would only make sense that, kind of the final thing, the final blow, if you will, is to um take the name of their most high one, of their most holy
And
one,
maybe, and
and
if Gata
have
or
it
Got
be
or God
your
is
most high
related to the
one,
idea of
your
pouring seed or
most
being a
holy one.
father. So it's even more redundant if you say God the Father. You're literally saying Father the Father, right? Maybe and perhaps. But back to this idea of maybe disparaging female goddesses, right? Well, what if the language
Yeah,
wasn't so
it's
charged prior to this thing, and so when you decide to give God this name of preeminently a masculine name of this who creates everything, right? You've like shunned now the female and maybe out of the picture now that you've assigned the highest word you got, if it is a fatherly connotated word or something, right? Maybe you're kind of like shunting the female aside and being, no, the father is the creator of everything, and that it doesn't even need a mother anymore, right? Which I kind of feel like that's what we're sort of hinting at, right? Oh, you don't even artificial wombs and transgendering the women out of existence or whatever, right? All that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Yep.
But if it has that that water connection, what we just mentioned, the womb, the 9 months, the being being developed in in the water, and that's the first thing that happens when you are being born. The water breaks. So in that way, like I'm kind of wondering, yeah, we give the name uh to
Mm.
Odin, really, but what if
Mm.
the feminine aspect is already in there? I mean,
The
he
cider.
had to learn the feminine magic. The name escapes me at the moment. Yeah, Scyther. He had to learn Scyther to, become the most
Yeah, he had to like
powerful magician,
transgress
and
in order
he,
to like expound his
I mean,
expand
quite
his
literally
territory,
had
right?
to cross-dress for that. He had to dress as a woman. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he had to, like, kind of embody the feminine in order to learn the feminine magic. So, within Odin, within the All-Father, the feminine is kind of already in there, the feminine magic, which is incredibly strong magic. I mean, yeah. I mean, just my God, like I just look at my wife.
And
Her magic is incredibly strong. How is
and so
she?
yeah, wondering all these
Managed to
connections and
trick me?
associations
That's
between
definitely
this
magic.
word, back to where I kind of let it off the beginning. Once again, if God and Goth both have this root, I'd asked at the beginning, why does this word goth have so much flexibility and power and moodiness and meaning, right? And I pretty much just said if Gothic is Gautic, aka Odinic, um, I wonder if Gothic is essentially Odinic when you really say that word once again, right? And even wondering, well, hey, since Goth and God, once again, they both come from the same place, basically. Is the reason why this word is so powerful is because it's literally like the cousin of this word? And so whenever you think of Gothic, right, and I kind of asked at the very top, I got all these pictures on here. Well, let me scroll down the bottom. So when you think of Gothic, even this
I
Gothic,
mean
right?
that
Why were they able to name the city Gotham? There's something to that name that it evokes something, right? And we've got,
that's kind of gothic.
mm-hmm. It's a fashion sense,
It's
it's a
it's kind of
psychological
dark, kind
sense,
of broody,
it's
kind of
even, but it's even like an
gothic in a
architectural
way.
sense too, right?
Also,
And
real quick,
even at its height and it's at its low too, like I feel this picture of this cathedral being broken down is sort of like a broken Irminsul or something, or you're just sort of waiting to be like rebirthed again or something, right? Like there's a sort of grandeur and a sort of indifference of time, um and whatever, right? And so yeah, these ideas of Gothic moodiness and even, like I said, literature and pop culture,
right?
right? Dracula, Nosferatu, Gothic horror, right? Frankenstein, Gothic horror. Um,
Or one of my favorite movies. I
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah,
the poster
exactly.
hanging here right
Yes,
next to
yes. And
me.
what does he do? He's kind
The
of like
Crow,
Odinic
the
too. He
original one
dies
with
and
Brandon
rises
Lee,
again, doesn't he?
a gothic thriller,
And kind of gets
and
vengeance and all that stuff.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. He is a he is vengeful. He's seeking revenge, which is
Right,
very
right. Much
Odinic,
like the
but
Odin one too,
it's
right? He's trying to
out
avert,
of
doom for his people too, right?
love, really, which is again, yeah, exactly. But just revenge, but out of love. It is very romantic and but very gothic at the same time.
And
Romanticism. We kind of
remember I
associate
talked
that
about Wolfgang von Goethe,
with
right? One of
gothic
his
as
most
well.
famous things he did is Faust, right? But bringing it back to Shakespeare, so his is definitely is based on Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. Okay,
Yeah,
so this
yeah,
comes
yeah,
out
yeah.
with Shakespeare's. This is like 300 years before Goethe writes his stuff, right? Um, Christopher Marlowe definitely in the Shakespeare conspiracy. Is he part of it? Did Shakespeare steal stuff? Blah 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 blah. I won't go into that. But Marlowe, this name here, this last name means driftwood. And Marlowe hanging out or definitely associated with
Oh,
Shakespeare, aka
hey,
Spear
okay,
Shaker, just
yeah.
another Odinic kind of connotated name. Or at least I could do a Wikipedia schizophrenia connection, right? So yeah, that's why I put Dr. Faustus there. And I even say Spengler, maybe it's Spengler or Heigl.
Yeah,
Maybe it's Spengler. Spengler is like Faustus, and Faust is the Gothic spirit. But I'm like, yeah, Faust he's Odin, right? He's like Odin's like, all right, I may screw myself up here, but I may take the ultimate gamble of trying to get all this knowledge to avert a disaster, right? To gamble on, my own wits and intelligence to see a path out of the the scary deal I'm kind of forced to make here. And like that's Odin to me, right? He's like, yeah, I got to do all this stuff to try to avert Ragnarok. Um, and so yeah,
oh hell yeah.
right. And even I like
That's
this one here, right?
it's good.
She's definitely wearing
Edgar
gothic,
Allan Poe. There's
clothing or whatever, kind
the
of a
Crow
spooky thing.
connection
What's this
again.
character's name? Well, what's this character's name? As in Walden's dog, right?
It is
Ah.
very gothic inspired. Yeah. Um, Wednesday. Oh god. Yeah. Oh.
So,
Okay.
yep.
Wow.
This
Why
is
am
me
I only
just, yeah.
making
So
that
whenever you
connection
think
now?
of
I'm
Gothic
literally
now,
watching the
now
show
once
with my
again,
wife.
Goth, God, Guth, Guton, Got, ancestor of the Goths or the Gutones, right?
And it's interesting in that that gothic picture that that you
Yep,
have up there.
yep.
They are barbarians. They are, heathens, pagans,
Oh yeah, you're
and
right.
those kind of seem to be
It was like
runic,
some
some
old
sort of
video
a
game
runic
from the 90s or
script.
early 2000s.
The band on top.
And so yeah, just showing how it's like, permeates our media, permeates our mood. It's got all this, when I say gothic, do you talk about the literature, you talking about the aesthetic, you talking about the cathedrals, like what are you talking about, right? And even when you think about the cathedrals, right? A gothic cathedral, doesn't this already kind of loom like the flying buttresses? This is a scene from the the Volsungas, or this is the one where Odin stabs a sword into a tree, and kind of like King Arthur, he's like, all right, whoever gets the sword out of the tree gets to be king or whatever. But even these old forests and old mead halls, right, where they got these overtraining trees and these flying buttresses looking things. When I think of a
Huh.
Gothic cathedral, I'm like, it's an Odinic cathedral. It's associated with the forests and the trees and all that sort of stuff, right?
I mean, that's what they. Yeah, no, that's what they try to emulate at first. They try to emulate the forests, especially on the on the roof, and indeed the pillars. What are the pillars if not just giant trees? What are um the beautiful shapes and figures on the ceiling if not the branches and the leaves? And another connection that I have between like water and sacrifice. It is not uncommon, or was not
Yes.
uncommon to um sacrifice in the water as well, to like a very if like a very powerful warrior died, they would it was a practice
Yeah,
that
the other
his
side.
sword, for example, would be offered
And I guess I
to
have in
the
another book
water,
that the Goths are
basically.
kind of into that too. This idea of
Yeah,
bearing some weapons, maybe later for some other kin to dig it up and have some claim. And now that it's been in the other world for this amount of time, that it's kind of gained otherworldly powers or significance. That's kind of like the Gothic horror thing too, right? You're kind of going through old, dilapidated places that are lacking vitality, that they need some sort of like new reinterpretation or a revival of some sort, right? And so, yeah, pulling out some old ancient sword of the ground that's been dug or stuck down there like King Arthur's Excalibur or something, right? That's been on this other side. Yeah, yeah.
or you see that even in you even see it in Lord of the Rings, especially at the most significant one, of course, being in the third movie, where the sword
Yep,
that once was broken, that had defeated the Dark Lord once again,
exactly.
is
Yep. And we already talked
repaired,
about
or
Tolkien's
brought
interests
new
with
for
some of these
the
Gothic
the
terms too, right?
rightful heir
Like
to
Theoden,
slay the
probably, right?
darkness
And all that
again.
sort of stuff. And so
It's
just,
it's
yeah, every time you think of Gothic, maybe we should start
exactly.
thinking Odinic, Gothic. So every time, like I said, every time you say "Oh my God" or "OMG," are you really calling out to Odin? So maybe when you say "God damn it," maybe you're not saying "Don't worry." Make sure you're not meaning the Christian guy here, or you're not meaning the Germanic guy here, right? So because if you're using that term, you keep saying "God damn it" all the time, maybe you're pissing somebody off. So yeah, exactly. So maybe we need to correct ourselves in that sense, right? Um,
I mean, he
yeah, I've been
will
sort of
take you
thinking
up on
about
that
that all the
challenge.
time. But that's pretty much that. Without going into further crazy detail, this is an old stream I did on Nosferatu, how it's a meta gothic story that I did. I'm sorry, live stream I did because yeah, like I said, he's from this. The story takes place in that Black Sea region, the exact same one I showed you, where the Gitte and the Goths are moving through, and so
Yeah, Transylvania, Romania, that is very much,
yeah. Otherwise,
yeah, that
that's
is
pretty
that is the
much all
Balkans, that
I've got
is,
for you. And
the
I
Black
think
Sea
that's the end of my
territory. Yeah.
presentation, just connecting, yeah, this name of the Goths and where they, this etymology about where it comes from and why is the word God and Goth so related. And it ended up being, hey, is, God, just another name, just a coming from Godon, another Odinic name. Maybe not quite, but it had kind of turned out that God is kind of very similar to the word God, which is probably one of Odin's names anyway.
Yeah. So it is, but also it
So
isn't,
yeah,
but it
bada boom,
you know,
mic drop.
very
That's
likely
that's what I
is.
got.
This yeah. This has been awesome, man. Thank you very much for this. You have done some amazing research and put together a very, very nice presentation, I'd say. And man, I can't believe I hadn't made that Wednesday connection. I should have. Oh man. Um yeah, and I'm kind of thinking of like, the two braids, two pillars in a way,
I mean,
perhaps.
even her she's even got,
Um
Celtic-y, or even,
I'm going off the
braids,
deep end,
from
people.
that style, right? A Northern European style, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, braids. Very, very Germanic, very Celtic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's very much um it's very British, which, is very, very Celtic, of course. And the Celts, the Golts, perhaps, who know? Um there are so many more connections that you can probably make. But hey, man, this was
Well,
awesome.
thank
This
you
was
so much. Yeah,
incredible. And this
I've got the
is,
Substack essays on this whole piece,
yeah,
like, all sourced
you're one
out and
hell of a
everything, and I've got
researcher,
even
bro.
more. I go into
Props.
even more depth in the essays, and I have some more stuff I'll probably add in the video that I'm slowly editing. It's like taking forever. It's gonna be like a 40-minute long, 50-minute long video or something. Um, so, but yeah, if people like this, go check out the first two entries that are already done, that are already video made. You can go watch those now. If you like that, go watch the Gothic horror one too, and the weird video, the weird is weird video. Talking about the change of that word and how it relates to Shakespeare and a bunch of Odin stuff too, of course.
I'm gonna have to catch up on all of them, because if they are, as good as the presentation you have here today, then man, I'm in for a ride. I'm in for a ride. I love it. Um so yeah, where can the good people find the video? Where can they find,
Yeah, my
all your deep dives, all
schizophrenia,
your
my
well,
wikiphrenia, or something like that.
schizoproofing, if you
I'm on YouTube.
will.
I'm under Apocalypsis Historia. I'm on under that under Substack under my name as well, Brady Nash. And so yeah, I've got I needed my links in my videos. I got Patreon and other ways you can support me too if you're interested in that. Otherwise, yeah, I'll post all my stuff for free, and yeah, I'll keep grinding it out. Substack and uh, YouTube.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure that at least your YouTube and your Substack are in the description down below, and will also appear in the show notes for the audio platforms. And I'm very happy that YouTube now also has a collaborator function, collaborator thing that makes it a lot easier. So I'll do that for this video as well, so it'll show up
Nah, it'll be all right. Yeah,
on
because the
your
video,
channel
took
as
its
well,
own
unless then
experience, and so no,
it's spoiling
I've been
things. Then
trying to
I'll
shout at the
try to
rooftops in the
keep
heathen
it low
circles
key.
about a lot of this stuff too. Like, dude, guys, the word God itself, the highest word in English, is related to an Odinic name, and I just want more people to be excited about that. And so, kind of was finally getting around to having some more time about trying to push it out. And so I was like, oh yeah, Stein, he's a pagan guy. Hopefully, he'll dig this or whatever. And so yeah, I'm so glad that you already were kind of like tuned into the stuff that was going to come on. Like, oh, it kind of reminds me of this, kind of reminds me of that. I'm like, yes, 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 you're on it. So
Oh hell yeah, bro. I mean, it's all. I mean, shit. Like, it's what I'm about. The Norse Germanic, the pantheon, the gods, the runes, the lifestyle. Like, just yeah, that's what I'm about. So I mean, thank you very much that for coming on and showing all of this. And um yeah, I mean, I do hope some of my other heathen brethren we'll see this as well, because I mean this stuff is great, and you have put so much time and effort into this, and the connections that you make are, I mean, they're true. Like call it jokingly, like schizo pose
Yeah.
thing. Well, I mean, I say it's closer to the Germanic autism, you know, like just taking one thing and ripping it apart and going deep and like, oh, this connects and this connects and this connects, and just like hyper focus on one thing, and like I want to know every fucking thing about it. So yeah, man, dude, seriously, this was awesome. I'm not even gonna edit this video. Like stuff is I'm just probably just gonna clean up the audio, put in an intro, outro. That's that. Because this needs to be shown as a whole. So yeah, and to my my lovely audience, of course, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. If you have been listening, I do recommend you watch the video as well for the full experience. With all the pictures, all the runes, the names, everything. It's the video that will really blow your mind. So, but yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Find Brady on Apocalypsis Historia. If you like this, you're gonna love the rest as well. Like I've been saying, I need to catch up on this shit because this is awesome. You can find the Greyhorn Pagans on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter. Just look up Greyhorn Pagans or look up StijnFawkes. You're going to find me, you're going to find the Greyhorn Pagans, or simply go to our website, www.greyhornpagans.com, where everything is linked. If you want to support us, if you want to support the channel, support the work that we do with the tribe, go to patreon.com/Greyhorn Pagans, subscribe to a tier of your liking. Wonder if there's a connection there. If you like what we did with the runes, make sure to subscribe to the Greyhorn Pagans book club, where we are currently still reading the Night Side of the Runes, Uthark, Aloruna, and the here we go, Gothic Kabbalah by Thomas Carlson. It is an amazing book, and I really need to do more live streams for the book club, especially now. I'm getting a taste for it. Or if you don't necessarily like Patreon, you want to keep it easy, become a YouTube channel member. It is all very much appreciated. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you all very much for listening. I will catch you all next time with another amazing guest, although the bar has been set high when it comes to, paganism and pagan links and all of that. Like the last 3, 4, 5 guests that I have had, they have blown my mind in several different ways. So it surprises me that I can still do this, because my mind has been blown over and over. Hope yours is too. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. I will catch you all next time. Bye-bye, everyone. This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access, and for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast. Find us on www.greyhornpagans.com. For now, we thank you, and until next time.